Community Chronicles Radio, brought to you weekly by the Erie Higher Education Council, promoting lifelong learning to empower individuals, produce a competitive workforce, and enhance the community's quality of life. Through this mission, which serves as a constant reminder, the Erie Higher Education Council wants to highlight the Erie area's entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurial ecosystem drivers. Welcome to Community Chronicles Radio. If you'd like, you can give us a call here at the station, talk about what we have going on today, 814-679-1080. That's 814-679-1080. One of our guests will be calling that shortly and talking to us while on the road and taking care of all the things that he does in his busy schedule. So we're looking forward to that, RJ Messenger. But I am Dr. Matthew Plotz, and with me today, as always, is our exuberant co-host, Steph Scroose. Good morning, Steph.
Good morning, Matt. How's it going?
Good. So we've been at this radio game now for 12 weeks, and we have had this habit of talking about the weather. How about the last few days? It's been...
It's been up and down. It's been a lot of rain, and the sun has tried to come out. And this morning, I don't know, here in Erie, it's still looking a little dreary, but I don't know.
There's supposed to be some pop-up rainstorms today, and but, very temperate. Nice, cool weather, not too hot, not too cold. It's good. Well, like I mentioned, we've been doing this for 12 weeks now, and next week will be our 13th show, which represents the quarter of time that we've been here. And we will mark a milestone in a way with the format of the show after that 13th show. The Erie Higher Education Council has served as the primary sponsor the past 13 weeks, but we are stepping aside from that role after next week. But do not despair, faithful listeners. The June 21st show will start our brand new sponsorship with the Gannon University Erie Technology Incubator. This sponsorship is going to allow us to have some great discussions with the ETI Board of Directors, who they themselves are entrepreneurs. Each of them is impressive for their work in the ecosystem, and being entrepreneurs themselves, they'll have great stories to tell, just like all of the guests we've had for the last 13 weeks. Look for those interviews with the ETI to begin on June 21st. So, Steph, like any live program, we've had our share of change on the fly. This week, no different. We're going to welcome our first guest here, but this was a scramble this week to get guests and get everything kind of put together as we like to do. But we have on the phone with us now RJ Messenger, who you may know from his time with Iron Empire. Good morning, RJ.
Good morning.
What's up, Matt? How are you doing?
Yes.
We're doing great. So, yeah, we put this together at the last minute. I actually had written the script, got it done, and you're like, give me a call. We'll do the show. And so I don't have a lot of formal questions for you ready to go, but like we talked about yesterday, you said we could ask some questions and you would have great answers, and we'll just kind of go from there. So, RJ, everybody kind of knows you here in Erie with your time with Iron Empire, and also the show Undercover Billionaire. What have you been up to recently?
So I decided to close my store back in July of last year. I realized that it just wasn't for me anymore. Ready to move on to whatever the next thing was. I was 35 years old. I did Iron Empire for 8 years, and I kind of started to lose the love for it. So I closed my store, not really knowing what the hell I was doing, which, again, is kind of similar. I made an entrepreneurial jump into Iron Empire. Like, I quit my job with the city and, retired early, they say, to jump into the unknown. And 8 years later, I kind of did the same thing, but just not having a plan. I said, you know what, I'm not happy. I don't want to do this anymore, and I don't know what I'm going to do, but let's close my store up. And from there, I had to make some quick decisions. I actually ended up getting my real estate license in November. So I've been a real estate agent since November. Obviously, if you're familiar with the housing market right now, it's a little weird. So I take an amazing time to get into real estate, obviously. So I did that, but honestly, aside from that, I really haven't been up to much. Still kind of figuring out, what maybe this next big move is for me. On the side, I do, a little bit of stuff just to kind of keep me busy. whether it's like social media stuff for people, other businesses, website design, building, stuff like that. But other than that, I'm kind of just figuring out what's next for me still.
Okay. What made you decide to become a realtor? All of a sudden jumping from like your Iron Empire clothing into becoming a realtor?
To me, it was a big part of it was the flexibility and the freedom to kind of still be your own boss, be able to work the hours. I mean, you can't pick and choose every single hour you work in real estate. Obviously, you're going to be, showing or, showing listings or houses or whatever it is. You got to really work around your client schedules, but it's a lot easier to have some flexibility with that than just like a regular 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. I personally, I think I had the freedom of being my own boss, I guess you'd say, for 8 years, where I think that's if that day ever comes, that's going to be a huge transition for me. Going up a bunch of time cards from 9 to 5 again or whatever it is, 5 days a week. And someone had said to me, they said, why don't you start using your network that you've built over the years with Iron Empire, like the people that whether they're local or outside of Erie, to your advantage, and actually start, trying to make some real money. Instead of selling $20 T-shirts, why don't you try selling $200,000 houses? I said, that's not a bad idea. Like, I have built a network up. I, know how to use my social media to my advantage pretty well. And why not? Let's see what I can do in the real estate industry.
I think for me, RJ, is what's always impressed me about you is you mentioned it. Okay, you left a steady job at the city. You knew what that paycheck was. You knew what the health benefits of it were. And we talk about this on
Right.
this show quite a bit with entrepreneurs who are, definitely in the arena. They're making the choices that a lot of people have difficulty with. It doesn't feel safe. But you have always approached this from a perspective of kind of being unafraid. You made that move, and every choice that you've made, you kind of approach it with the idea that you're going to succeed, and it doesn't matter so much what you're going to do, but you have that drive and your ability and just that network, like you talked about, that is very impressive. So,
No, I appreciate that.
All right. So I was looking at your Facebook, or I think it was your Facebook the other day, and I was just telling Matt, I said I didn't know a whole lot about undercover, undercover billionaire? I didn't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about that and your time with that. I was trying to get a little bit of background, but
Yeah. No, it was definitely an awesome experience. Something that was very unexpected. Needless to say, the story that production pitched to me and some of the other cast, it started to feel a little bit iffy the more we went into it, but at least for me personally, once you're kind of so far deep and invested into something, you kind of forget about everything that's surrounding it. You just have the goal of getting to the finish line. So at one point I just said, okay, I'm just going to stop trying to question, why there's, 15 cameras in my face and not just, one camera. We were told it was going to be, a little documentary for Netflix or something. So, I'm thinking that, okay, this will be cool to, release and feel a bit of attention. Then the first day, they come and show up at my store. There's 25 people jumping out of vans. I'm like, this is a little weird, but we'll kind of go with this and see what happens. But it ended up being, a life-changing experience. Full circle, if you watch that season, then if you even watch Comeback City, where Glenn comes back and does 8 episodes where he helps out, 8 other businesses in the area. One of them is on Underdog, and he gives kind of an update. So, I was kind of his right-hand man through that whole season, helping him get the restaurant started. My sister ended up coming and kind of saving the day and was offered, a kitchen job because she owned her own restaurant at the time. And here we are a couple years later, and she's actually the one, she owns the restaurant 100% out right now. And she's the one who opened the new restaurant down on West 8th Street, over by Colony Plaza. So, it's one of those things where I took a chance and an opportunity and kind of, again, jumping into the unknown of what the hell is going to happen with this. And a couple years later, you know, it's still benefiting, you know, someone in my family. And, you know, it was able to kind of go around full circle. So, you know, my sister, she owns a restaurant now. I wouldn't say Glenn's out completely as in, like, he doesn't want anything to do with it, but she does own the restaurant 100%. And she was the one who was able to secure, you know, the financing and the loan for the new building and this and that. She really did all that herself. So I had stepped away. So I'm no longer, you know, part of the day-to-day or any of that with Underdog. I'm obviously there for, you know, moral support, I guess you could say. You know, my dad works there for her. He quit his job with the city. He finally retired. So he retired from the city to go work full-time for my sister as her, you know, maintenance and help with managing and stuff like that. So I'm really happy to see how it turned out in the long run. I think it was a good experience for everyone and the city.
So you had no previous experience in like the barbecue game, right?
No.
Yeah. So
no, none at all.
It's that thing that Glenn kind of noticed, you know, and if you watch the show and if you've seen it, Glenn picked out that drive and motivation that you have to get whatever it is done. And you know, that's a really cool experience to have been part of. So Ashley moved the restaurant from the old 3D's location into the new building you mentioned that was Perkins. I have a question, and maybe you have some insight, because I think about different things as I drive through the city and the potential for businesses and entrepreneurs and things like that. That 3D's location, for a very long time, it seems like it cannot succeed, but it has what I think is a prime piece of real estate. What was the biggest roadblock in that building? What made Ashley want to move? It's a tough question.
Sorry, there you are. So she didn't own the property. It was a lease. So she was leasing that. She was leasing the building. She was even like leasing a liquor license. Like, she didn't own any of it. And when she realized that she wanted to be able to own the property she had, without going into details, you know, she tried to make a couple different offers to the owner. The owner wasn't interested, at least in the price that she was giving him, which, you know, I will say it's for sale again now, and the price that she was offering that is declining. It's already down to that price, so he probably should have sold it to her. Yeah, so she just knew that, hey, you know, like, we can only lease this for so long, lease the liquor license. If we want to continue growing, we really have to move into our own spot. And that's kind of what pushed her to start looking around and consider different options.
That's interesting. It's always kind of, I drive by there frequently to get my kids, and I see that building, and there's been a few businesses that have been in and then back out. So it has always been interesting to me. So one thing I want to bring up, RJ, and you had a few years ago, I recognized what you were doing in the community when you were going in and talking to children about financial literacy, that kind of stuff. Can you talk about what you do and the work that you do for inspiring others to succeed?
Like, just as far as, like, you know, kind of like the things that I speak on, or like... Yeah.
What, you have a story to tell, and obviously you've talked about your past and the things that you've been able to overcome.
Right.
But, going into classrooms, talking to young people about, their drive and their ability to do things that you can do anything if you put your mind to it. And that's kind of what you've talked about. Can you talk about your experiences in the classroom, relating your experiences to younger kids?
Right. Yeah. So, as far as, whether I'm speaking to kids or... One second, just so you know, like I told you yesterday, I'm getting in my truck to drive. And give me 1 second to keep it connected to my AirPods here.
You got to be careful because, the governor signed the new law. I think it was a couple of days ago. This is hands-free, right, RJ, for the sake and the safety of
it? I'm actually only driving around the block, and then I'm parking, and I'm not going to be driving anymore. So
okay,
I'm driving good. 2 minutes. All right, we're good here. So, depending or not depending, whether I am going to a classroom to speak to kids or, adults. I mean, I've even spoken in prison before. I always want to go in with the same, what's the word I'm looking for here? The same, idea of, like you said, you can do anything you put your mind to. Like, don't be scared to try and, jump into the unknown or learn something or whatever it is. So I guess depending, whether I'm talking to a bunch of sixth graders or whether I'm talking to a bunch of prisoners, it's the same. The story stays the same, right? But I got to change it up. When I spoke in the prison, again, something that I'm open about is I'm a convicted felon in 2 different countries. So I knew that would connect with them. Me being in a prison, knowing that at one point in time, I was sitting in their seats or in their shoes before, and now here I am speaking to them about the success I've had because I didn't let my past determine my future, right? So when I go and talk to 6th graders, I can't go and be like, hey, I'm a convicted felon and this and that, and I used to do all this stuff when I was younger. I can't, really say like that, but I could speak it in a different way where they would understand. I could say, I went to a Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, and I decided not to go to college, and I kind of just changed the script a little bit, and make it more of, hey, if you make bad decisions, or if you've been raised a certain way, or if you're surrounded by this kind of environment that would normally, statistically, keep you back or hold you back from being what you want to be, you can overcome that. There's no reason why you can't. And honestly, with a lot of the kids, there was a few times I spoke to a couple hundred kids at once, 6th graders. I think they got all the 6th graders in the public city school system to come to the school the one time. And, 6th graders, obviously, it was really hard to keep them entertained and stuff like that. But, I said, as long as there's one kid in the audience that comes up to me at the end and talks to me or says, hey, I want to kind of be like you when I grow up, whatever it is, then it's worth it, right? And that's kind of always been my goal is, one of these things, hope that one kid pays attention and then hears what I'm saying and understands it, and can hopefully relate. Exactly. I don't know if that really answered your question, but.
Yeah. I feel it did.
Yeah, you talk about, I think I was watching some clips on your Facebook or your website there about getting out of your comfort zone. I even saw where you had taken singing lessons or something, and you
oh yeah,
I mean, and just anything like that. Like I said, you're always willing to try something new, and like I said, you've just got to, if you don't try, how do you know if you'll succeed? And just having that determination and whatever you got to do, that's great.
So
I've go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt your thought process. It's just something we do this background for show prep, and type your name in Google and whatever comes up, we take a look. You were Erie's 40 under 40 in the class of 2020, but one part of that is sticking out to me, and I didn't know this about you. You were on a Jay-Z music video. Which video is that? Because I have to look for that when we're done here.
Yeah, so that was it was a song called "Run This Town." It was with Jay-Z, Rihanna, and Kanye West. And that's kind of when, that actually was kind of the start of me gaining confidence and hey, I can look the way I do and be living the lifestyle that I was living or whatever, and still, I guess, kind of be successful in my own way, right? I found a niche. I actually had just gotten a job with the city. When I was part-time when I first started, I was in my early 20s. I was still kind of figuring out what I was going to do with my life, and I wanted to try and turn my life around. So when I got the job with the city, I'm like, okay, I have a decent job. What else can I do? That would go against the, I guess, norm. 15 years ago, people really didn't look like me. And I started getting my, visible the face and the head tattoos, I think when I was 19 or 20. So again, we're talking 16, 17 years ago. Nowadays, it's kind of actually common to see someone with, a couple face tattoos here and there. So back then, it wasn't common. and it was one of those things where, like, you walk into a room with 1,000 people, you're sticking out like a sore thumb, right? So I want to try and figure out how I could use my look to my advantage, and I started looking online for different, whether it's like roles or this or that or whatever. So I ended up getting a couple small or big, however you want to consider it, roles in different things. You know, one of them being the Jay-Z music video. Went on to Staten Island in New York. We filmed that on the Staten Island Army base. And it was a night shoot. I didn't think we didn't start till 10 o'clock and finish at like 4 in the morning. I did a Lionsgate Films movie in Pittsburgh for about 2.5 months. It was called Warrior, with Tom Hardy, Joel Egerton, Nick Nolte. And because of my experience with, again, my catapult me in my experience in that, because I showed up just as an extra for like a 2-day shoot on a weekend. And then they pulled me out of, you know, a group of like 50 people that were supposed to be like background gym fighters or whatever. They said, we actually want you to be with one of like the main characters. He's, you know, got a mohawk and tattoos. We want you to be his entourage guy. So that turned into a whole 2.5 month kind of thing filming. And then on top of that, then what happened is the marketing director for Lionsgate Films, Tim Palin, is also a professional photographer. And he puts out photography books and print and stuff like that. And he's usually the one that does all of the movie posters and promotional items for Lionsgate Films. And he was putting together like a coffee table photo book called The Men of Warrior. And, you know, it was about MMA. So, you know, you're talking, you know, cage fighter guys, you know, blood, stuff like that. And they spotted me in some still frames from filming. And he said, I don't know who that guy is or where you got him, but we need him in the book with literally the 4 main actors in the movie. So I ended up doing a photography book. So then, again, because I kept saying, yeah, like, I'll do this. I even was invited to go out for the red carpet premiere, attend the premiere, meet a lot of people there. So I've had a lot of really one-of-a-kind, unique experiences just based on the way that I look, that I wouldn't have been able to experience if I didn't.
And the you know, we've tied to this quite a bit, is that you made the conscious choice to get out there and try something, and a lot came out of that. That's a great story. I didn't know that one either.
Yeah, there's quite a few out there. Got some stories. But yeah, I think anytime I've ever just kind of put myself out there or allowed, you know, whatever to happen, right? Like, hey, let's do this and just see what happens. I think the more you think and the more you, you know, sit and question, you know, is this a good move? Should I do this? Then the more you almost kind of talk yourself out of it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And like she said a little bit ago, it's, you know, you're not going to know unless you try. So.
And like putting yourself in the right, like being in the right place at the right time too.
Right.
Like you just never know what's going to happen. So.
Well, RJ, I want to thank you for calling in today. We're running up on the news break. We're going to come back after the news and talk with Zach Flock from the Erie Playhouse. Our producer, Joel, is about to be in a production. When you're talking about doing that thing that might scare you a little bit, we're going to talk to Joel about his role in the production that's coming up at the Erie Playhouse, coming up after the break. If you want to ask anybody a question or find something out, give us a call here at 814-679-1080. Like I said, we're going to come back with Zach Flock after the break. You are listening to Community Chronicles Radio on 103.3 FM, 105.9 FM, and 1530 AM. And as always, through the Corey Higher Education Council Facebook page. We will be back after the news.
Cheddar.
Oh, there he is. Thank you, RJ.
Yep, sorry. Yep.
Oh, you're good. Thank you for coming on. We'll talk.
Are we on break right now?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
I
just wanted to make sure before I kept talking.
You can, if you need to go, you can go, or you can hang on. It's up to you.
What? So you have someone else coming on,
Yeah.
and then Joel, do you need me? Do you want me to be on? Like, is there more questions that you want to ask, or?
No, I think you're good to go. We're getting you cut loose for whatever you had to do here at 8:30. I appreciate.
Perfect. No, perfect. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. We'll be in touch about talking down at the High Ed soon.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Let's reschedule that.
All right. Thanks, bud.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye. It works if they're in here. Welcome back to Community Chronicles Radio, brought to you weekly by the Corey Higher Education Council, promoting lifelong learning to empower individuals, produce a competitive workforce, and enhance the community's quality of life. I want to thank our next guest for agreeing to be part of the show on relatively short notice. Founded over 100 years ago with a focus on performing quality live theater for the Erie community, the Erie Playhouse is featuring a packed schedule over the next few months. Our producer, Joel, will be lighting up the stage soon as Nicely in the production of Guys and Dolls, which opens next week on June 14th at 7:30 p.m. I would like to welcome to the show the executive director of the Erie Playhouse, Zach Flock. Welcome, Zach.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Yes, welcome, Zach. Can you give us a background on the Erie Playhouse overall and talk a little bit about your time there?
Sure. So the Playhouse has been around for 108 seasons now. I have not, but it's been such an important staple to our community. It's moved through many different locations in the region over those 108 years, settling in its current home 40 years ago in the former Strand Theater on West 10th Street. The thing that has remained true at the Playhouse from the beginning is that it is a community theater. It's dependent on individuals from the community participating in shows like Joel, which we'll talk more about, I'm sure, and also on community support, on audiences, on sponsors, on people really embracing the Playhouse and supporting its mission. I've been in the role of executive director for just over a year now. Was involved with the Playhouse back in college 20 years ago, and continued to be a part of the community theater region, or community theater community in our region for the last 20 years or so, including some time on the Playhouse as a board member, and came back to Erie last year after a little bit of time out of town and stepped into that executive director role. And it's been a wonderful experience so far, and more great stuff to come.
That's great. If someone has never been to a show, what should they know?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing I want people to know is that there might be a misconception in some people's minds about the formality of theater, right? That it maybe might not seem accessible or might seem elite or something like that. And I think that if people have been to the Playhouse before, they'll know that that's not the case. You don't have to get, super dressed up like you're going to a fancy dinner or something like that. You're welcome to, if that's your style. But plenty of folks, will come in jeans and definitely a more casual kind of vibe. And you don't have to be a quote unquote theater person to have a good time and appreciate theater. So we try to pick shows that have broad appeal. Guys and Dolls, the next one coming up, certainly is a prime example of that. There will be a mix of people in the audience, I'm sure, who have seen it before, either the movie or on stage. And folks who are coming, for the first time because they want to support a friend or a coworker or, someone in the community that they know. And so, theater is for everybody. And I think that's the big takeaway that I hope people get from that.
I think that's a good thing to point out because probably some people are wondering, oh yeah, is there like a dress code? Do I have to, be all fancy and, but no, that's good to point out that, it's for everybody. Can you talk a little bit about the upcoming shows? And we know Joel is going to be featured in Guys and Dolls. So what other shows are coming up soon as well?
Yeah, so Guys and Dolls opens next weekend and runs through the end of June. Joel plays nicely. I was at rehearsal last night, and he's doing a great job. So I'm excited to see that one come together. After that, we have Newsies opening at the end of July and running into August. That's, of course, a beloved Disney live-action movie adapted to the stage into a musical, and it's really a fun, exciting show for the whole family. So a great kind of summer experience as well. That'll be followed in the early fall by Shawshank Redemption. Folks know that movie. It's almost always on TV, right? And so there's a stage version of it that's really cool, and we're excited to produce that on our stage in September. I'm interested to see, and I'm the executive director, so I'm not always hands-on in every aspect of the artistic production. So I have not yet seen, kind of what the design's going to look like for that show. And knowing the movie, just trying to imagine how that translates to the stage, I'm excited to see how it's done.
Yeah, so, that one's interesting to me.
Yeah.
You have that. How do you adapt that for the stage? It had a certain feel to it, but
exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that'll be followed then by Sweeney Todd, a musical, of course, that a lot of folks know or at least have heard of, maybe have not seen on stage before. It's a little dark, so that one's maybe not for the whole family, but it's not, it's staged, so it's not too gory or anything like that. But we're doing that in October, which is a great fit as we get into the Halloween season. Then we change gears and have our youth theater production of Tuck Everlasting. That's theater for young audiences, so definitely, a family-friendly affair. And our youth theater productions are, a star and have young performers and crew members working on those productions. So it's great to see what our young talent can do. And then we will end our 2025 season in December with Disney's Beauty and the Beast. So you can't think of a better way to end a season than something like that. That's just absolute theater at its best, at its most spectacular in the best sense of the word. So that's our season coming up. And then we'll also be announcing plans for 2025 later this summer.
It's amazing how it all comes around.
It never stops.
Yeah. One of the things that I notice about this schedule, and I'm looking at it on my screen now, is that you really do very well at providing something for everyone. That, maybe Sweeney Todd isn't for the young children, but look what you have coming up, Beauty and the Beast, that their focus is there. So it's great stuff, and I encourage people to check it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, yeah, you got a lot of great shows, and the variety. I didn't want to interrupt you. Now I got my thought off. Yeah, the Shawshank Redemption. I was just going to say about that because I got to visit the Ohio State Reformatory where they actually filmed parts of it, and that was a really awesome experience. Getting to actually go through the prison and see get to tour it and see where they actually use parts of that one, and then they actually not all of it. They use parts of it, but I don't know. It was a really awesome experience. So I'd like to see that in a theater form too. Like I said, to see how they adapt that will be a neat experience. So
yeah, that'll be a challenge for sure. But we love a good challenge.
That's good. If someone were interested in auditioning, so what should they do if they wanted to audition for one of these?
Yeah, we are always so happy to welcome new people onto the Playhouse stage. So I guess that would just be another thing I want people to know is you may, if you are a Playhouse regular, you may see some familiar faces on our stage. Our hope is that in addition to some of those familiar faces, you're seeing some new performers as well. Joel, I think this is your first time as a Playhouse performer, which surprised me. I assumed that by now you'd been on our stage before.
This is literally 40 years in the making, because I haven't done a show like this since college, since Gannon.
So, Joel, it's not my show, but if I can kind of ask you to answer that question.
Yeah, no.
Because you went through that process of auditioning and everything like that.
And really, just a little background on why. Like, I did this role as a teenager, as a 15-year-old sophomore at Mercier's Prep. They were reviving a theater at Mercier's Prep, or maybe just inaugurating it back in 1978. And I was cast as nicely. I fell in love with the role, fell in love with theater. I mean, it's amazing how that captures you, right, Zach? I mean, and I said, I remember even saying to Almy, because Almy's been a lifelong friend, I said, if you guys ever do that again, I'm going to at least audition for Nicely. And that was the only goal, was to actually kind of stretch myself a little bit to go through an audition process. I came in cold. I was prepared, but they didn't know I was coming. Yeah. And I auditioned, and I got the role, which just, I went over the moon. And I have to say this, you know, when the idea of being a part of something bigger than yourself, when you enter a cast or enter the crew or enter the orchestra pit, that's the feeling you get. You know that.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, just to kind of give you the sort of brass tacks of how do you know when we have auditions or anything like that, if you sign up on our website to receive our email updates, we are, constantly letting people know of what's going on in terms of auditions or other events. We have all of our audition dates for the rest of the season actually listed on erieplayhouse.org. And then, of course, we try to push everything out on social media as well. So if you see that audition notice, or if you see that there's a show that you're interested in auditioning for, check out the website or reach out to any of us at the Playhouse. And again, we're happy and excited when we have new talent on our stage and in that audition hall. We had over 70 people audition for Newsies and Shawshank Redemption, which is really great.
That's great.
Yeah. And I mean, it's, on the flip side, there are people who unfortunately we have to say no to, but it's never, no, don't ever come back. It's not this time, but please come back and audition in the future. And we try to use as many folks as we can in each production. So it is a community theater, and giving people in the community those opportunities to perform is part of what we do. So we always are looking for new talent, returning talent, as many people and as good of a combination of folks as we can get on our stage. And under the stage in our pit as well. Our musicians are all volunteer performers as well. So.
Now, there's a lot of, volunteers that, and volunteering that goes on, but there's also a lot of costs probably that come up for costumes and props and makeup. Now, how are these productions funded?
Yeah, so it is an expensive endeavor for sure, especially when we want to maintain a high level of quality, of artistic quality. A lot of folks who come to the Playhouse are surprised to learn that we are a community theater, that these are volunteer performers, volunteer talent. We do have a small professional staff helping kind of behind the scenes, both on the administrative and artistic side. But it is expensive. So, we are very dependent on ticket sales, on sponsorships and grants. One thing that we do that the cast of Guys and Dolls has been very successful with is we ask the cast members to solicit costume sponsors. And, those are low dollar amounts compared to, say, a corporate sponsorship, but they're really vital to what we do. It's kind of similar to, if you have a kid who's on a team and they're going out looking for, $20 here and there from folks to support the team. Very similar idea. So cast members have done that, and some have gotten hundreds of dollars in costume sponsors, which is a really great way to support not just costuming. I mean, that is what we call them, and they do help support that, but it really kind of helps support the production and the operations of the Playhouse in general.
I thought that was a very cool thing. Like Joel posted, and he has a great network, so it probably went well, right, Joel?
Yeah, I mean, we hit 379.
Oh, yeah,
wow.
That's fantastic.
That cool. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I just had no idea that was part of the process to underwrite costumes, and I did not know how much costumes for a production actually cost. You know, you kind of step back and think, man, that's a lot of money for
Absolutely,
somebody.
yes. And certain shows, you factor in not just costumes, but, Beauty and the Beast, for example, there's a lot of special effects, things that I can't disclose how they work because Disney would be, coming after me. I don't want that, right? But there's, to bring these stories to life, it is no cheap endeavor. And I mean, we are as frugal as we can be, and we are responsible with the dollars that we have. But there are definitely expenses involved, and we don't want to cut corners. We want to give everybody as incredible an experience as they can have when they come into our theater.
So when you get the rights for some of these, you mentioned Disney and Beauty and the Beast. Do they hold you to certain parameters? That's
absolutely.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah. No changes to the script, that kind of thing. A lot of things that are in those contracts when we receive the rights. One of the great things about the Playhouse and its 108-year history is that we have developed relationships with a lot of the license holders, and so there are often cases where we are among the first, if not the first, community theater in the nation to have the opportunity to do certain shows. So, for example, we haven't announced our full season for next year yet, but we have announced that we're going to open it with the show Waitress, which was just recently on Broadway, a Tony Award-winning musical, and will be one of the first community theaters in the nation to have the opportunity to produce that show. So they reached out to us, asked us if we wanted to do it, and we said, yeah, absolutely.
I like that we got the sneak peek here on Community Chronicles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask a question, Matt?
Yeah.
Zach, can you talk about where performing arts are at right now as far as getting people back into a theater? Because that has been like the number one struggle for any kind of assembly, whether it's going back to church or going back in to see the symphony, coming back to the shows.
Yeah, it's been a slow process, I will say that. And because not only, there are some people who, the idea of congregating in a large crowd still is kind of iffy for a lot of folks, understandably. But with that also is just the fact that behaviors have changed, right? We got very used to staying at home, to watching, streaming and everything else. There are so many different ways to be entertained without leaving your home. So to get people to come back has taken a while. I will say, again, I just started a little over a year ago. From 2022 to 23, the Playhouse saw about a 25 or 30% increase in attendance, depending on exactly which metric you're looking at. And then so far in the 2024 season, we've continued to see strong numbers as well. So audiences are coming back. But, I mean, we're now, 4 years out from the height of the pandemic, and not quite yet at pre-pandemic attendance levels. So, and as you said, Joel, that's not unique to the Playhouse.
No.
That is arts organizations, any sort of large gatherings kind of across the board. And so, from a financial standpoint, we've had to kind of say, okay, if we're not going to bring in that, 2018 revenue amount, then we've got to make sure our expenses are in line and all of that. So, but audiences are coming back, and we're very grateful for that. And I think part of that is also just the selection of shows. Again, with community
theater. It's like a blockbuster.
This is our season of blockbusters, is what we're calling it. And also, who's in the cast? Again, not that we want to kind of lean on these same folks over and over again. And actually, it's kind of the opposite, because you cast Joel and Natalie in a show, and suddenly all of Joel's friends and families are coming as well. So, we want to get the right mix of folks involved. And also, we're mindful that as we welcome new people in and broaden our pool of talent, that with them comes additional folks who want to support their friends and family on stage as well.
Let me do one more shout out. I don't want to dominate your show.
No, it's good.
But the four principals are amazing in this show. So if you know anything about Guys and Dolls, there's a mission doll and a gambler who's wooing her, and that's Sarah Brown is Rachel Freenock, and the gambler is Sky Masterson, Jason Larregren, and I mean, those guys had to step in because they're the former folks that were cast had a medical emergency, and so they're doing fine. But that was a big deal for them to step in. Then, of course, Ken Falkenhagen is Nathan Detroit. He's the main gambler, and Miss Adelaide, Leah Johnson, and they're fantastic. Wow.
Absolutely. We're lucky to have such talent in our community, for sure.
Exactly. Now, I was thinking about going back to, I don't think I've ever seen Guys and Dolls. I'll have to take a look at that. But there's still nothing like the live theater. Like if you get people out to it and then they can experience seeing live theater. Like I went to Beauty and the Beast in Toronto and I'll never forget it because the special effects were just out of this world. Now, do you kind of, do you do the same kind of special effects as like the bigger theaters have, or does it have to be toned down, or how does that work?
Yeah, we really try our best to. Now, I mean, we want to do it well, right? So if we're not going to be able to pull something off at that same level of, I don't know, precision or professionalism, obviously we're not going to do it. But one of the things that, I mean, I'm not from Erie originally, and I remember the first time I saw a Playhouse show as a college student when I'd first moved to Erie, and I could not believe that it was a community theater. I mean, there are some great community theaters in the Pittsburgh area where I grew up, but coming to Erie and seeing these shows, you could have told me this is a touring company, or, you know, this is the members of the Broadway cast or something like that, and I would have believed it. And I think that's something that Erie audiences who grew up with the Playhouse might sometimes almost take for granted, that these are what we see in our community theaters really is professional level. So we do our best, as long as we can make it work, you know, budgetarily and technically and everything like that, to really try to be on par with what you would see if it was the tour coming through Broadway in Erie at the Warner, or, you know, frankly, I have heard folks say before, Jersey Boys, for example, folks who saw it at the Playhouse last summer and had seen it on Broadway and said the Playhouse production was superior to the Broadway production. Not to knock the Broadway production, but I'm going to take that praise, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
praise.
and it's probably less cost as well.
I would imagine so, yeah.
Yeah, so you get the same quality with less. But speaking of that, where could somebody, if they wanted to get season tickets or wanted to buy tickets for the upcoming shows, how would they go about doing that?
Sure. So our tickets are always on sale at erieplayhouse.org, and also our box office, our physical box office location is open from 10 to 6 on Monday through Friday and 10 to 2 on Saturdays. And we do also have as you mentioned, a season ticket option, which as the season progresses, we, you know, prorate that price so that it's just for the remainder of the season. So I do want to say, like, for the rest of this season, you could buy tickets right now. You could buy a season ticket for $115 that gets you all 5 main stage shows. So that's an incredible deal when you break it down across each show. Not to put in too much of a plug there, but
that is a great deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point about how it's much less expensive than a Broadway show, a single ticket, you know, especially to one of the bigger shows on Broadway, you're talking hundreds of dollars just for one ticket for one person to one show. So absolutely would encourage folks to check out our website and get some tickets and see a show.
So
I know when I
go ahead.
Oh,
Steph,
go ahead, Matt. Oh.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, Hamilton. I was like, do you guys take suggestions? Because I would love to see Hamilton come to like a smaller venue, but I know that might be.
Yeah, that one's not available just yet. I think they're gonna, as long as it's making money on Broadway, they're gonna keep it right there. Unfortunately,
yeah, and I know
someday.
I paid a pretty penny for that because I saw it at Shays Theater in Buffalo, and yeah, some of the cheap. Like, I don't know. I think it was like at least $200 for probably one of the cheapest. I mean, it was a great show. I was so glad I went, but yeah, they get kind of pricey.
Yeah, my wife and I actually saw that in New York City on our honeymoon, and I'm not going to say how much we paid.
Okay.
That was literally a once in a lifetime experience.
And then you have dinner and everything.
Right.
Wow. So one of the things that stands out to me, Zach, is that, you know, my kids are kind of approaching those teenage years where they get kind of disconnected and weird, and like they don't really think everything that their parents do is the greatest thing on the planet. But we decided last year in December to go to It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, that's a great story. I know when I was an angsty teenager, my mom's like, you got to watch this movie. And I'm like, it's black and white. It's stupid. I'm not watching it. But then there was a point where I did sit down and watch it. And everybody that knows me personally closely is that if I watch a movie that has any kind of heart or feeling behind it like that, I start sobbing. I'm like the big baby.
Me too.
So we took our kids to the It's a Wonderful Life, and you kind of get that, like, they're shuffling their feet. Maybe this isn't going to be great, but they watched the production, and you could tell by the end of it that we got them. We had them for that show. So my thought is that if you've ever thought, okay, maybe musicals aren't for me, or I'm not a play person, I would still encourage you to kind of just go to the Erie Playhouse or any place that's putting performances on, and check it out just one time. And it's like maybe eating something you haven't tried before. You might end up liking it. Right. If you don't, you're not losing anything. But it's check out what we have going on here. This scene is very good in Erie, and like you mentioned, we're first in the nation to get some of these productions, and the quality of the cast is outstanding, and they really put on a great show. So,
absolutely, and again, a lot of people I think who might say they're not theater people, they watch TV, they watch movies, right? They like to be entertained, right. and it's really not that different. I mean, yes, a lot of the shows we do are musicals. We also do non-musicals if the idea of someone bursting into song is frightening for you. We have those plays as well. But as you said, your family experiencing It's a Wonderful Life, which we did a musical version of, I think people find, that stigma of musicals are not for me kind of fades away once they're a few minutes into the show and the singing happens, and it's just the normal of the experience of that show.
Right. And one of the cool things, especially we'll talk about It's a Wonderful Life, you see that as a movie. It's not a musical, a lot of dialogue. But whoever created that script took some artistic license and put some songs in there that were absolutely outstanding. Mm-hmm. It was probably the biggest audience reaction. Which character was it? Mr. They bought the house. I don't know. It's early. I didn't have enough coffee.
Yeah, and it's been a few months, and with one show after another, they all kind of, I'm on to the next one.
It really grabbed the audience, and it's not part of the original script.
Mr. Martini.
Oh, Martini.
Mr. Martini.
Yeah,
there it is. That number was absolutely fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
And the crowd was like, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
You had him at that point. Even my kids.
And again, that cast were some of the absolute all-time favorites for performance in Erie, between Charlie and Art Martone from Mercier's Prep was up there, and just one
Mark
after
Tannenbaum,
another.
a lot of
David
Durst.
Oh my God.
As
Who
Mr.
played
Potter.
Mr. Potter. He was fabulous.
Yeah, you don't want to like that character, but there was a certain point where it's like, wow, he's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again, a mix of a lot of new folks in the ensemble and in some of the other roles as well. So that was a fantastic production. And we're also lucky that we have some incredible directors of our shows. You mentioned Almy Clerkin, who's directing Guys and Dolls, Richard Davis, who directs a number of our shows and is our artistic director. We have some really incredible talent bringing these productions to life, and we're really fortunate to have that in our community.
So we're running up on time here, Zach. Well, unfortunately, this hour goes by quickly. And if you want one more plug, where can people find out about the upcoming shows and buy tickets and get there? And I know Joel talked about the tickets kind of going quickly. I got ours for Saturday.
They're moving, but there's lots still available.
Yeah, there's definitely still good seats available for all the performances. EriePlayhouse.org, or you can go to our box office. We're at 13 West 10th, or you can also give us a call at 814-454-2852 during our normal business hours as well, and get yourself some tickets. Check out Guys and Dolls or any show coming up here in the remainder of the 2024 season.
Thanks for coming on, Zach.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, Steph, tell us about some stuff that we have going on at the Corey Higher Education Council. 21st Century Girls program's getting ready to go. Talk a little bit about that program so people know what we do.
Yes, we've got that coming up. It's Monday, June 17th through Thursday, the 20th. It highlights the talents of young women and the STEAM subjects to encourage them to pursue related educational career paths. They get to go on all sorts of field trips that happens at the Corey High Ed, and they get to go out to like Penn State Barron, the Planetarium, Zajac Farms, Gannon Cyber Camp. They'll have activities at Asbury Woods. This has been going on for the past...
We're up on time, Steph.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's all right.
I can go on and on. Okay, cut me off.
We're going to get the dad joke in real quick. We're going to do that now. It's presented by the Corey Higher Education Council. Did you hear about the actor who fell through the floorboard? He was just going through a stage.
Wow.
We'll see you next week. Tune in here, 8 a.m., talkerie.com. We'll see you then.